Kyle Larson wins his sixth race of the 2024 season, solidifying him as the current championship favorite, and 4 drivers have been eliminated from the playoffs, leaving 8 drivers left to fight for this year's championship. Let's break down NASCAR at the Charlotte Road Course. Hello everybody, welcome to Dirty Air. I'm your host Alex Lambert, and let's break down this year's NASCAR Charlotte Road Course race, the race where we cut 4 drivers out of the NASCAR playoffs. The playoff field goes from 12 to 8. We'll discuss those drivers that missed it. We'll discuss the drivers left. We'll look at the playoff grid going into Las Vegas for that second to last round, and then of course we'll talk about the man of the hour, Kyle Larson, getting his 6th win of the season, most this year by any driver, and his 29th career win. Big day today for Kyle Larson and the 5 team, and all of Hendrick Motorsports also moves into the final 8. So let's get into it. Let's break down this sort of what's becoming an annual Charlotte Roval race, right? You know, we've been doing it since 2018. We're doing it next year, so at least into 2025. And it's become a bit of a regular race and an interesting race because this has been the cutoff for this round, right? From going from 12 drivers to 8 drivers for a long time. And we still see some similar mistakes. We see some new things happen. We obviously got a track reconfiguration for this season, so certainly interesting. But we have a lot to break down regarding the playoff field, Kyle Larson, and multiple other things. But let's start out by talking about Kyle Larson and the show he's putting on, right? Because right now, you know, we talked about how Kyle Larson was good all year, right? You know, you go back to the 3rd race of the season, Las Vegas. Kyle Larson wins that race. He won the Brickyard 400, big win for him. A couple of races in Kansas. I look at the tracks coming up, and I look at Kyle Larson right now as the 100% championship favorite. Now, somebody could spoil that party. You know, somebody could get hot at the right time. A Chase Elliott, any of those drivers really in the final 8 could get hot in the second to last round of the playoffs and win the NASCAR championship. But man, Kyle Larson's just on a roll. You go back to 2021 when he won the Charlotte Road Course race in this round. Well, he won the championship that year, so that's certainly important to keep in mind as he's back to winning at the Roval in 2024. His 29th career win. Certainly Kyle Larson going over to HMS has stepped his career up. He won some races at Chip Ganassi, was obviously a very talented race car driver, but that team, that driver, and just really Cliff Daniels too, that brings it all together at the end of the day, is a very impressive group, and that's why I think they're the current championship favorite. Kyle Larson, solid all year, right? You know, was able to get some wins, but some driver mistakes have cost them a lot. They obviously missed the regular season championship by 1 point, which would, you know, potentially be heartbreaking if they missed a round because of a couple of points. But certainly that's really frustrating. But this team is just on fire. They were able to get by guys like SVG, AJ Allmendinger, was able to hold off Christopher Bell in the closing laps. Very impressive run by Kyle Larson. We've seen some impressive runs this year. Once again, 6 wins this year. You go to the Brickyard 400 as one of those crown jewel events. Just been an awesome season for Kyle Larson, stepping back up to getting the 6th win. Let's take a look at the entire top 10, right? I mean, Kyle Larson obviously was able to hold off, get the race win. Christopher Bell, a nice 2nd place finish. Certainly was showing a lot of speed at this road course. Has won at the Roval in previous years. William Byron, obviously a nice 3rd place finish. And Byron's another one of those playoff drivers, been very consistent over the last few weeks. As the playoffs begun, they've sort of stepped their game up. Haven't won a race and haven't really done anything flashy where they're in contention for the win, right? Well, we didn't look at Byron and say he was going to win today's race really at any point. But once again, a solid 3rd place finish, getting stage points, very real threat right now to win in Phoenix. Austin Cindric, 4th place finish, but he needed a win today, Austin Cindric, to get into the next round of the playoffs. Unfortunately for him, he did not get the win. Finished 4th after a mediocre previous couple of weeks. A crash last week while leading at Talladega certainly took him out and put him in a deep hole as he had a disadvantage going into this round with where he was stacked up in points. So Austin Cindric eliminated after finishing 4th. So upsetting for him. Chase Elliott, obviously a nice 5th place finish for him, will advance him into the next round. AJ Allmendinger, 6th place finish. I'm going to continue to say it. Last year's winner of the Charlotte Roval on a part-time schedule this year. I've said it multiple times. I don't think I can say it enough. AJ Allmendinger, the talent that he has on these road courses is like nothing else. The way he's able to dominate the Xfinity, do decent in Cup, win races in Cup on a part-time schedule on a road course shows the talent they have. Same thing with SVG right behind him in 7th position, a driver that's not full-time. But both of these drivers, let's keep this in mind, AJ Allmendinger and SVG, Shane Van Gisbergen, will both be full-time in 2025. So they're going to be fun to watch, right? They might not do as good on the ovals. They might have some trouble at some of these racetracks, not be top 16 in points. But if they can get a win at a road course, which will have multiple road courses, a new road course in Mexico City next year, I look at both of those drivers to potentially both of them get in off a road course win. So they're going to be a lot of fun to watch next year when they're sort of up to par with everyone as full-time drivers. I want to mention those two. Joey Logano, 8th place, once again, missed the playoffs by 2 points the next round. Unfortunately for him, just couldn't gain anything. Had Allmendinger go by him, had SVG go by him. Really just nothing Joey Logano could do to get into the next round of the playoffs. He was trying, he was on defense, but when you're on defense in NASCAR with 20 plus laps to go, 30 laps to go, that's usually not the best scenario to be in. Bubba Wallace finishing in 9th position. Sort of interesting. He was able to recover from a penalty, and I want to mention it real quick because Bubba Wallace received this penalty. Martin Truex Jr. Very shortly after this, it might have been the very next lap, also received this penalty. Martin Truex Jr. obviously had more of a rough day than Wallace. Wallace was able to recover, finish 9th. But what was going on here? I think we'll have to take a look at some officiating concerns here. Bubba Wallace gets the penalty because you can see the blue clearly cuts the racetrack. Should have got a penalty per rule book, right? And then you have William Byron in the same camera shot do something really similar. I'm not sure if it's because, both tires were on the rumble strips at one time. That's the only difference I can find. But per NBC, Steve Letart's explanation of the rule, William Byron should have got an obvious clear penalty there as well. So, man, it's been a rough week for NASCAR officiating, right? The Xfinity race yesterday was a disaster with officiating. And then, of course, today with that questionable call, it's getting a little bit frustrating. So you don't know if NASCAR will clean it up. It seems like we've been dealing with similar issues for a long time now, the last 4 or 5 years. But we'll see. NASCAR's got to take a look at this, get this figured out, or at least potentially the TV gave us the wrong explanation for the rules, which is another issue, right? But just wanted to bring that up. But Ryan Blaney, 9th, 10th place finish for him. He's also able to advance into the next round of the playoffs. Let's talk about the playoffs, right? Let's talk about the 4 drivers eliminated today. We'll go from bottom to top. First one out, Chase Briscoe, right? Had a rough round for him. Got involved in a wreck at Talladega. Did not do great the week before that. And then, of course, today, while running in the back, had some contact, but had a mechanical failure, a failure on the race car, completely eliminating him from even going for today's race win. We've seen Chase Briscoe have some success at road courses. The SHR cars have some successes at road courses. But today was the last time we'll ever see a Stewart-Haas Racing Ford or any car manufacturer with SHR race for a championship, and that's certainly something interesting, right? The last time we'll see that team racing for points, racing to make the championship round, win a NASCAR championship. Kevin Harvick did it in 2014. Tony Stewart did it before that with that team, but that's the last time we'll ever see it was today. He's no longer in the NASCAR playoffs. Chase Briscoe is out, so moving forward, it'll only be 8 drivers. He is not going to be a part of those 8. Also, we have Austin Cindric, right? Austin Cindric was not able to get in. Not a bad playoffs for Austin Cindric. They really stepped up their game. Penske really did. Once again, 2 of the Penske drivers got eliminated today, him, Joey Logano. But Austin Cindric, I was sort of impressed by how he ran the playoffs. I thought he was a guaranteed out first round. Sort of, I'm not going to say lucked into a win in St. Louis, but was not leading coming to the white flag, was able to get the win in St. Louis. Obviously well-deserving win, right? He was in the right position to get the win at St. Louis if something went wrong fuel-wise, which happened. So that is, I don't want to discredit that win, but all season long besides that was really a non-factor. Outside the top 25, running 30th most weeks. But when they got into the playoffs, they executed very well, especially in the first round, getting a solid finish at Atlanta, trying to have a solid day at Talladega until the wreck. I thought their playoffs were very well executed, and with a driver with that much, with now getting more experience going into his his 3rd season next year, his 4th season next year, right? It should be a big deal for Austin Cindric, and I think that with the driver experience continuing to grow and the team's execution being very well, they could be a threat to go farther in the future next year. So I want to continue to watch that for the number 2 team. Certainly a nice season for them. I thought it was, with how it went all year, as far as they made in the playoffs, is not disappointing in my opinion. Maybe they have something else to say. I'm sure they wanted to go farther, but I thought it was a successful playoff run by Cindric. Looked very well executed. On the other side of that, Daniel Suarez was eliminated today, and I thought the execution in this round of the playoffs was god-awful. I thought at Talladega last week, that mistake, I talked about it. I didn't like it. Also, Daniel Suarez not being coached well by the team, obviously gets involved in a wreck, crashes out. Their other driver for Trackhouse didn't make the playoffs. I thought that was a really bad move, ultimately caused them a lot of damage. And then today having issues as well. And one thing I wanted to point out today is Daniel Suarez cutting across the corner and then serving the penalty immediately right after he got forced below that corner. He got forced out of the racetrack surface, and I thought that he probably wouldn't have got that penalty if he'd have let the call be made. And when you're racing for every point, every position, trying to get a race win to go to the next round, you have to have those key details. And that's not just one moment. There's a few other moments I can point at in this round where I feel like the pressure got to that team, and somebody was not coaching the driver well as the other 11, right? Joey Logano, really not much else he could have done. I mean, it's been a bit of a rough season for Logano. Didn't have a whole lot of speed, but Penske picked it up when the playoffs started at the end of the summer. When he won that Nashville race, was really like the flip of a switch for Joey Logano, and the 22 team was able to get in the playoffs. Was able to win at Atlanta to get himself into this round, and then of course this round just didn't quite go his way. It was a solid round, but not enough to get in the top 8. Missed it by 2 or 3 points. Tyler Reddick was gaining on him quick there, passing multiple drivers at the end. Tyler Reddick was able to advance in the next round and knock Joey Logano in the 22 Ford, who was on defense, out of the playoffs. And there's a common theme in these NASCAR playoffs: the driver on defense usually doesn't get through, and that's certainly something we can watch. Not always. There are certain situations where that's not the case, but we can go back to a lot of instances in the playoffs where the driver on defense is not the driver that ends up in the best position or the winning position of the outcome. So that's certainly interesting. Let's talk about the playoff grid going into the second to last round of the playoffs, right? 3 races: Las Vegas, Miami, Martinsville. I hope I'll be at Martinsville. These 3 races will determine the championship for at Phoenix, which once again, the Phoenix race would be a final 1-race shootout, best finisher of the top 4. But here it is right now. Kyle Larson with a decent buffer, 33 points. That's pretty good. You carry the 5 points over from today, all the stage points, all the wins, all year long. Kyle Larson has a clear advantage right now. And I think he needs to take that and run with it, because if I look at the racetracks coming up, Miami, Las Vegas next week, even Martinsville, I see these as good tracks for Kyle Larson and tracks he can go out there and capitalize on, not a concern like Talladega or Atlanta, right? So certainly this is a big deal for Kyle Larson's got to capitalize on these races coming up, and I think they will with this race team, the way they're going right now. Christopher Bell, 13 points above. Once again, won in one of these at these racetracks last year. I believe he won at Miami last year, right? So almost won at Las Vegas last year. So I'm looking at Christopher Bell with that 13-point cushion. The racetracks in this next round, round of 8, third round. I'm looking at Christopher Bell to be a strong championship 4 contender if things go right. Tyler Reddick, 10 points in. Once again, using those points in the regular season championship to get it to this round, and then he's going to carry these points into this round as well. 10 points above. William Byron gets a little bit closer, but once again, been really consistent. 4 points above. Ryan Blaney got to clean up a few things. Currently 4 points below the cut line, seated 5th, but man, once again, won at Martinsville last year to get himself in the championship 4 and won the championship. Your defending champion, Ryan Blaney, in the round of 8, going for 2 in a row. Denny Hamlin, 8 points below. Denny Hamlin's got to clean up a lot of stuff, right? 8 points out right now. They got to clean up some stuff going into this next round of play. A lot of mistakes by the driver and team in the playoffs I'm seeing, and really all year long. That's cost them a lot of points all year. We're going to have to continue to watch that. Chase Elliott, been very consistent all year long, but they need to get a little edge, a little farther up to try to get the race win. They've been getting top 10s, top 20s all season, but they're going to have to step up, get the top 5, go for the race win if they want to win a championship or make it to the Final 4. Alex Bowman, sort of the underdog right now of the Final 8, but he has made the round of 8 before. Certainly the underdog right now, but I don't know. With some of these racetracks coming up, Alex Bowman could potentially look at punching his ticket with a win at maybe a Martinsville or a Las Vegas, tracks that he's won at before, and advance him to the championship 4. So don't sleep on the 48 team of Alex Bowman. That's really it. All there is to talk about following NASCAR's race at the Roval, the road course. That's really all there is to talk about. Like and subscribe if you like the video. Share the video if you do. I really do appreciate it. And of course, about Kyle Busch, unfortunately not getting a top 10 today for the first time in a while at the Roval. Let's get rowdy.